Hello, welcome back students. I hope everyone is safe at their home. So today we are going to do a very important chapter which is Kabuliwala. Small children are a bunch of energy. Sometimes with their unending curiosity they take a toll on the nerves. But they are so innocent that they form a bond of love with anyone who shares that world of wonder. Kabuliwala is a short story written by Rabindranath Tagore in which Minnie is a small girl who has a special bond with the Kabuliwala. He befriends with her and sees his own daughter with her. The story is narrated by Minnie's father. So now this is a story of Kabuliwala who comes and belongs from Kabul and a little girl, and the narrator is little girl's father. The name of the little girl is Minnie and the story is written by Rabindranath Tagore. And now the Rabindranath Tagore is saying that And now Rabindranath Tagore ji is saying that small children are very innocent. They are bundle of energies and they ask so many questions. So now we'll explore the story of Kabuliwala and Minnie and how Minnie asks many questions and make friends with Kabuliwala. My 5-year-old daughter Minnie cannot live without chattering. So what do we mean by chattering? Chattering means talks a lot. So now the narrator, who is Minnie's father, is saying that my 5-year-old daughter likes to talk and chatters a lot. I really believe that in all her life she has not wasted a minute in silence. Her mother is often vexed at this and would like to stop her prattle. So what do we mean by prattle? Which means chattering. So when Minnie talks a lot, so her mother is very agitated when she asks so many questions. For Minnie, to be quiet is unnatural. So now Minnie's father, who is the narrator, he is saying that it is very unnatural for Minnie to be shut, to keep quiet and sit at her place, and she is always asking questions and she is always chattering. Is unnatural and I cannot bear it too long. And so my own talk with her is always lively. So now the father is saying that whenever I talk to my daughter, it is very lively to talk to my daughter because she asks so many lively questions. One morning, for instance, when I was in the midst of the 17th chapter of my new novel, my little Minnie stole in the room and putting her hand into mine said, "Father Ramdayal, the doorkeeper calls a crow a crow. He doesn't know anything, does he?" So now Minnie is saying, why does the doorkeeper Ramdayal calls a crow a crow? Why does he call him? Repeat. So why does he call him by that name? The crow doesn't know that his name is Crow. So before I could explain to her the difference between one language and another in this world, she had embarked on a full tide of another subject. So now when the father was about to explain the daughter the difference between two languages, Minnie has come up with another question or with another subject. What do you think, father? Bhola says there is an elephant in the cloud blowing water off his trunk, and that is why it rains. So now the Minnie is saying that Bhola told me that there is an elephant in the sky who is blowing the water and that's why it rains on the earth. So now the father is very confused and then darting off anew while I sat still trying to think of some reply to this. Father, what relation is mother to you? So now she is jumping on from one question to the other questions to the other questions, and now Her next question is, what is your relationship with our mother? So now she's asking all kinds of quirky questions to her father. The window of my room overlooked the road. The child had seated herself at the feet near my table and was playing softly. Suddenly, Minnie left her play and ran to the window, crying, "A Kabuliwala, a Kabuliwala." So now, Minnie left everything when she was playing and sat near the window and shouted, "Kabuliwala, Kabuliwala." And indeed, in the street below, there was a Kabuliwala walking slowly along. He wore the loose soiled clothes to his people and a tall turban. He carried a bag on his back and boxes of grapes in his hand. So now the narrator is giving the description of how Kabuliwala actually looked. So Kabuliwala wore a big turban. What do we mean by turban, students? Pagdi. So now the Kabuliwala is wearing a pagdi and he has many grapes, many peanuts in his bag, and he is wearing soiled clothes, which means very loose clothes he is wearing, Kabuliwala. And now Minnie is calling Kabuliwala from the window. I cannot tell what my daughter's feelings were when she saw this man, but she began to call him loudly. "Ah, thought I, he will come and my 17th chapter will never be finished." So now the narrator, who is Minnie's father, is saying that now when the Minnie has called Kabuliwala, so now the Kabuliwala is coming, and now the narrator is never going to finish his 16th chapter of his new novel, because now he will again get interrupted by one of the mischievous acts his daughter is doing. At that very moment, the Kabuliwala turned and looked up at the child. When she saw this, she was overcome by terror and running to her mother for protection, disappeared. She had a blind belief that inside the bag which the big man carried, there were perhaps 2 or 3 other children like her. So now, first Minnie called the Kabuliwala, and now when the Kabuliwala is approaching, now Minnie is getting very scared. Minnie is thinking that in his big bag that he is carrying, in this picture we can also see, students, he is carrying a big bag. So now Minnie is thinking that he might be carrying 1 to 2 other children like him in his bag, and now Minnie is very scared and she ran back to her mother, scared, and she is hiding behind her mother. My first impulse was to stop and buy something, since Minnie had called the man to the house. I made some small purchases and we began to talk about Abdul Rahman, the Russians, the English and the frontier policies. So now Kabuliwala and Minnie's father, who is the narrator, they both are talking about something, and now Minnie's father has also bought something from the Kabuliwala, and they both are talking about politics, English and about the frontier policies, and the Russians and the Abdul Rahman, they are talking about politics and other stuff. As he was about to leave, he asked, "And where is that little girl, sir?" And then, thinking that Minnie must get rid of her false fear, I had her brought out. So now the narrator is saying that I must call Minnie, my daughter, outside because Kabuliwala is calling her. She stood by my chair and looked at the Kabuliwala and his bag. He offered her nuts and raisins. So what do we mean by raisins, students? Raisins means kishmish, right? But she would not be tempted and only clung closer to me with all her doubts increased, which means clung on to me, which means that she was very afraid to go even near to Kabuliwala, so she stayed near to her father. This was their first meeting. So this was Kabuliwala's and Minnie's first meeting. A few mornings later, however, I was leaving the house, I was startled. So what do we mean by startled, students? Startled means that the father was very surprised to see Kabuliwala with his daughter the next few mornings after the last encounter they both had. at his house, seated on a bench near the door, laughing and talking with the great Kabuliwala at her feet. So now Minnie is sitting at her feet and talking to the Kabuliwala very amazingly and happily. In all her life, my small daughter had never found so patient a listener, save her father. And already the corner of her little sari was stuffed with almonds and raisins, the gift of her visitor. So now the Kabuliwala has given so many gifts, almonds and raisins, to the little daughter, and now all the raisins and almonds are on the sari of that little child who is sitting and asking all kinds of questions to the Kabuliwala, and Kabuliwala is patiently listening to the girl. And the visitor is saying, "Why did you give her those?" I said, and taking out an 8 anna price, I handed it to him. The man accepted the money and put it into his pocket. So now when the father is seeing the little girl and the Kabuliwala, both of them are talking, and now the Kabuliwala has given raisins and almonds. So the father found this as a duty to give 8 annas to the Kabuliwala for all the almonds and the raisins he has given to his daughter. Alas, on my return, an hour later, I found the unfortunate coins had made twice its repeat. I found the unfortunate coins had made twice its own worth of trouble. For the Kabuliwala has given it to Minnie, and her mother caught sight of the bright round objects, had pounced on the child with, "Where did you get the 8 anna prize?" So now the mother doesn't know from where Minnie got all these 8 annas. So now the mother is screaming on Minnie that from where did you get these 8 annas? And now the father has to explain the whole situation, that he gave 8 annas to the Kabuliwala, who must have given it to the girl back. "The Kabuliwala gave it to me," said Minnie cheerfully, which means Minnie happily said that 8 annas were given by Kabuliwala. "The Kabuliwala gave it to me," cried her mother, greatly shocked. "Oh Minnie, how can you take it from Kabuliwala?" I entered at that moment, and saving her from impending disaster, proceeding to make my own queries. So now the father immediately entered. So now the mother is asking the daughter Minnie that from where did you get this 8 annas? So now Minnie is saying Kabuliwala gave it to me, and now the mother is very angry that how can you take 8 annas from Kabuliwala? And now the father came in between immediately with all the explanation that I was the one who gave the 8 annas to Kabuliwala, and Kabuliwala might have given the 8 annas back to Minnie. It was not the first or the second time I found that the two had met. The Kabuliwala had overcome the child's first terror by a bribe of nuts and raisins, and the two were now great friends. So now he is saying, the narrator is saying that my daughter has made a great friend who is Kabuliwala. Kabuliwala comes every often, once or twice a day, and they both sit and talk, and my daughter has made a great friend who is Kabuliwala. They had made very quaint jokes which amused them greatly. What do we mean by quaint, students? Quaint means very quirky jokes, very funny jokes. They both are sitting and enjoying and laughing, and Kabuliwala is also enjoying his little friend. Minnie would seat herself before him, look down on his gigantic frame in all her tiny dignity, and with her face rippling with laughter, would begin, "Oh Kabuliwala, what have you got in your bag?" So now the Minnie is screaming and asking, and very joyously and happily, she is asking, "Oh Kabuliwala, what is there in your bag? What is there in your bag? Tell me." And he would reply in the nasal accent of the mountaineers, which means, what do we mean by nasal accent? That he is pretending he's making some kind of different accent, and he's saying an elephant, ma'am. So he's being very quirky at this point, and he's saying that I have got an elephant in my bag. And now the child is laughing because they both are joking and enjoying. Not much cause for merriment perhaps, but how they both enjoyed the fun. And for me, this child's talk with the grown-up man has always in it something strangely fascinating. So now the narrator is saying that a grown man and a little child is talking for hours, and it is very fascinating for me to see both of them laughing and enjoying. That how can a grown-up man and a little child, how can they both enjoy after having so much age difference between them? Then the Kabuliwala would take his turn. Well, little one, when are you going to your father-in-law's house? So now the Kabuliwala is joking and saying, when are you going to your father-in-law's house? When are you becoming older, and when are you going to get married and you are going to your father-in-law's house? Tell me about it. Now nearly every small Bengali maiden had heard long ago about her father-in-law's house, but we were a little new-fangled and had kept these things from our child. So Minnie must have been a little bewildered. So what do we mean by bewildered, students? Bewildered means very strange, because the narrator never told about all these things to his Minnie, that you are going to get married at some age and you are going to go to your father-in-law. So the child is very much unaware because Minnie's father never told her about marriage or household. So now Minnie is very shocked and very surprised that what is Kabuliwala talking about? Why is he talking about father-in-law? So, but she should not show it, and with ready tact replied, are you going there? So now the little Minnie who didn't understand anything about this thing, so now Minnie is saying that, are you also going there? Are you also going with me to my father-in-law? Amongst men of Kabuliwala's class, it is well known that the words father-in-law's house have a double meaning. It is a euphemism for jail, the place where we were well cared for at no expense to ourselves. In this sense, would the sturdy peddler take my daughter's question? So now the Kabuliwala, what did Kabuliwala meant when he said father-in-law? He meant that she should go to a jail. So in a very joking manner, he said that, when are you going to jails? Which Minnie didn't understand because she was just a child. But in Kabuliwala's language, it was a double meaning, which meant that, when are you going to the jail? So he jokingly asked this to Minnie, who didn't understand anything because she was very little. So what do we mean by euphemism? Students, euphemism means double meaning of something else. So if I say one thing but it actually means other thing, which means here when Kabuliwala said father-in-law, he actually meant jail. Oh, he would say, shaking his fist at an invisible policeman, I will thrash my father-in-law. So now the Kabuliwala is joking around with the child to make him laugh more, and he is doing a little act and saying that he has been chained and I will thrash my father-in-law. So if I go in the jail, I will thrash, I will beat my father-in-law. So he is saying. Hearing this and picturing the poor discomfited relative, Minnie would go off into peals of laughter in which her formidable friends would join. So now Minnie is enjoying with all her other friends as well, and confronting and everything, they all are enjoying. These were autumn mornings, the very time of the year when kings of old went forth to conquer, and I, without stirring from my little corner in Calcutta, would let my mind wander over the whole world. So now the narrator is saying these are the autumn mornings where I just sit and write my novel, and in these are the times when king go to conquer other places and I sit in my little stirring corners. So what do we mean by stirring? In my little corner I sit and write in these autumn mornings. My heart would go out to it and the sight of the foreigner in the streets. I would fall to weaving a network of dreams, the mountains, the gleams, and the forest of his faraway wilds. Perhaps scenes of travels are conquered up before me and pass and repass in my imagination all the more vividly because I led an existence so like a vegetable that a call to travel would fall upon me like a thunderbolt. So now, after years of not seeing Kabuliwala, he is sitting in a little corner of his room and thinking that these are the autumn mornings where I feel lonely and I dream a lot, I imagine a lot, and I see mountains and gleams, I picture about everything and I feel like traveling to the other world because I led an existence so like a vegetable. So now the narrator is saying that I am living like a vegetable, I am not moving anywhere, I am just sitting there. That a call to travel would fall upon me like a thunderbolt. Like if someone tells me that I have to travel somewhere, I would be very shocked. So what do we mean by thunderbolt? That it would be like a lightning struck on me. In the presence of this Kabuliwala, I was transported to the foot of mountain peaks with narrow little paths twisting in and out. I could see the strings of camel bearing merchandise and the company of turbaned merchants, some carrying their quirk old firearms and some their spare, journeying downwards towards the plain. So now the narrator is saying throughout this while I used to just keep sitting in a corner in my room in the autumn morning just dreaming and imagining, but after seeing Kabuliwala, after seeing Minnie talking to him and all these cheerful moments, I felt like I have travelled across everything. I have travelled the mountains in the face of Kabuliwala. I have travelled because I can see all the experiences that Kabuliwala might have faced. So now the author is feeling what all Kabuliwala might have travelled to every places. So this is the end of the chapter, students. I hope you all enjoyed and let's meet in the next class. Thank you.